Hey, I'm Amy from the Power Network. So, Brian Koberger is reportedly taking a plea deal. And yeah, I mean, oh gosh, I've got all these things going. Let me start this over. Hey, I'm Amy from the Power Network. So, Brian Koberger is reportedly taking a plea deal. And yeah, that's got us asking, should prosecutors really be tossing around deals like candy? I mean, if wiping out an entire house of students on your whole family looking at you, Chris Watts, doesn't warrant going the full distance, then what does? Today we're breaking down the cases, the deals, and who's really getting played. I've got Rose from Rose Z with me. Shout out to my Power Dragonflies. And I'm going to roll some credits while the rest of the Power crew shows up. I love you guys.
Cavalier's drumming his old guitar again. Words rolling out into our fire. If heaven had wings, out to you then, and fly away with you for a while. Hearing the essence of gratitude, your dreamy little smile on my lips. I miss my cue, but baby, I had you. Miss my cue, but I had you for that day.
Here in the essence of gratitude, I'm glad to be back with my Watts Island crew. Today, we're going to be talking about the Chris Watts case, but we're also going to be watching the Koberger case because I just feel like this is so eerily familiar that we're going into a plea deal for Koberger at 1 o'clock, and Rose Z will be joining me in just a moment. I wanted to take us a little bit early, just to get it going because I guess Brian will be in court at 1 p.m. and I wanted to be able to bring us in there. But I also wanted to introduce the comparison of Chris Watts and Brian Koberger. What do you guys think? Do you feel like this is like eerily similar, that Koberger is taking a deal so everything will be halted? No more. He won't have to say another word. He won't have to explain why or how he did it, just like Chris Watts did, where he just was able to say, yeah, I did it. And that was the end of it. I mean, we got a little bit lucky that or was it who was it that went to see him? The two was Tammy Lee, I know, went, and the two other officers went. So we got a little bit lucky that they went and talked to him. Do you think that's going to happen where somebody later on down the road will meet up with Koberger and he'll start leaking out these little bits and pieces of stories and just stringing the whole world along, and it's going to turn into the shit show that the Watts case has turned into? I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen. I kind of do. Before we get started, if we could just start that algorithm dance party that I like to do, just start warming up your fingers and dancing them right up to the hearts and thumbs up button. Helps us dance out into the algorithm, party out there, bring more people back to the party. It's just a free way to help us out, and it's really, really appreciated. Today, we're coming to you on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So I'm going to get my screen situated. Rose will be here in just a minute. And I do have the live court TV up, and I am watching. He is supposed to be going into his plea deal hearing at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's currently 12:52 p.m. Eastern time. So I do have it up, and I'm keeping an eye on it. But let's take a look at the Chris Watts plea deal while we're waiting to go into the Brian Koberger plea deal. Do you think there has been word out on the street that Brian Koberger took this plea deal because he wanted to spare his parents having to go into trial and testifying. I guess there was a phone call to Brian Koberger's mother after the Schmurders that night. And then, there was the cross country trip with his dad. Now, we know that with Chris Watts, there was a phone call to his mother. And his mother was like, "Do you want us to come?" And he's like, "No, just send dad." So dad flew out. Ronnie Watts flew out. And so there was a car ride that we never got to hear about. Well, there's a lot we didn't get to hear about in the Watts case, but I mean, it just, for all intents and purposes, put a halt to everything. But people are saying that the reason that Koberger decided not to go to trial is because he didn't want his parents to have to testify. And I feel like one of the reasons why Chris Watts didn't go to trial was that he didn't want his parents to hear all his bad deeds. And probably didn't want them to have to testify. So I can really apply a lot of similarities to these two cases. I just got a text from Rose, and she's going to be in a second. But I feel like it's similar. Does anyone else see these two similarities, or is it am I doing that reach thing that I like to do? Reach. Although I won't say that I'm reaching too far, because I will say that Megyn Kelly and Megyn Kelly, who was it? It was Megyn Kelly and Ashley Banfield got together, and they were talking about the two cases as well. They were discussing how there was another very famous case but they were doing it in a way that it was like a negative thing, that Chris Watts put in the plea deal, and it was to avoid the death penalty. And I do have that video to hold on. I'm a little preoccupied. Hold on one second, you guys. Yeah, I do have the video for us that we can watch that, but let me get the screen together. I will show you what we're watching. We are in courtroom. Hold on. We're in Court TV's courtroom today. And coming up, it's the Koberger case hearing. There is some speculation on whether the judge will even approve of this plea deal. We don't even know. I see Rose is here. I'm going to bring her up. Hey, Rose, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. I just wanted to get us going early because he's supposed to be in court at 1, and I didn't know, and I wanted us to have this, a discussion going and introduce it. And also, I'm not feeling so great, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie.
When I don't feel good, it's really hard for me to wait on things. I just want to just go and do it. Are you like that?
Yeah. Yes, because I'm one of those people I like to get things wrapped up. You know what I mean? So I just want to totally get it.
Yeah.
But
your mic is a little glitchy. Can we work on it for a second?
Yep. Can you hear me right now?
I can hear you, but you're glitching in and out quite a bit. Damn it. So let's see. What are they doing?
Okay.
Why is the chat disabled for this live stream, I wonder? Not ours, but for Court TV's. While you're trying to figure that out, let me do a quick search to see if any other channels like Law Network or something have it on.
How's my volume and everything right now?
It's still glitchy.
Okay, I put it on a different Wi-Fi server. So let me know if that.
No, it's actually even worse now. Well, not worse.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's worse.
Okay. Let me see.
So we are going into the Brian Koberger trial. It looks like court's going to resume shortly. I am trying to find a channel.
Plea agreement when this hearing.
So this is Meeting the Eatons. Nate from that covered the Lori Daybell case is covering it. I love him.
About 3 minutes. Koberger will say we'll say at least something, either yes or no. He might elaborate a little bit. Some judges, when I've covered the agreement hearings, have come on and have said you must how you did it, something like that. So we'll see if that's what the judge says. I'm going to ask Jordan here to hand over my computer because I'm going to look up. And so we have the information for you. It's expected that the family members of the 4 victims will be in court today. Again, they found out about this Monday. They don't live in Ada County. They don't live in Boise. And so they had to, of course, put together travel plans to be at this hearing today. I mentioned earlier that this is not the sentencing hearing, so it's not like this is the last hearing that will happen, but it will be a major step, and the sentencing could happen within the next few weeks. Just stand by with me here, folks. I want to go back to our timeline.
Does this remind you of the Chris Watts case at all, where
has this
like everything just comes to a screeching halt as soon as they decide they're going to do this plea deal?
Yes, and I'm freaking out that we're never going to find out all those little things that we would have found out in the court hearing, just like the Watts case. If they had a jury trial, I think we would have found out so much more information. And so we're just never going to know the stuff I want to know.
They wanted a seat, and there's very limited numbers of seats in the actual courtroom where this was taking place. There had been meetings held with the media that about this trial. Had it gone to trial, what type of seating arrangements would be there, and how
I don't know,
get
dude.
seats.
Your mic is off. I can't.
A lottery system that said
maybe go out and come back in and see if that helps it.
And once you're on,
absolutely,
you can get a seat if you're one of the lucky people.
Do you have a different device?
So this would have been a hearing, a trial that would have been watched around the world. Okay. On Tuesday, December 27th, trash was recovered from the Koberger family residence by law enforcement in Pennsylvania and then sent to the Idaho State lab for DNA testing. That's how they were able to narrow it down. They got trash. Somehow the police were led to the Koberger residence in Pennsylvania. They were able to find a piece of trash that had DNA on it, and then they sent that to the Idaho State lab for.
So for those just joining, we're waiting for Koberger to come into trial. We're comparing the Watts case with the Koberger case because it's very familiar. Watts was up for the DP and struck a deal. Koberger was up for the DP. He struck a deal. He's about to go into court. We are watching Meeting the Eatons, and he is explaining the Koberger case. Rosie is with me. She's having some mic issues, so we're trying to work it out before we go into the court.
Testing. The next day, the Idaho State lab reported that a DNA profile obtained from the trash matched a tan leather knife sheath found laying on the bed.
No, it's still the same. It's weird.
Then
it's like,
profile
I don't know. I can't hear you. I can't understand what you're saying. It's like
99.9998% of the male population would be expected to be excluded from the possibility
so why don't we just try to reschedule and DNA bring you up another
that was
time?
Found in the trash was the father of the suspect. Nearly 100% chance that was the case. And the suspect.
I don't know.
I really can't understand. I really can't understand you at all now, Rose. It got really bad there. So I just removed you, and we'll just figure it out another time.
I remember the news broke. It was crazy that these crimes happened right before Thanksgiving, and he was arrested right around Christmas. It is now 11 o'clock. The judge should be in the courtroom shortly. I want to be sure we have this. We are live on the camera. In just a moment, the court will cut over. You know that it's not always that court proceedings start on time. I would imagine with this one, it should be starting very shortly. They will turn on the cameras and I will stop talking and you will see It happened, as I mentioned earlier, these are court cameras. We have no control over the cameras. It's Zoom cameras that are mounted on the walls, so there won't be any zooming in or any sort of adjustments made. This hearing, I don't expect it to be relatively long. Normally, plea change hearings could last as short as 5 minutes. This one could probably be a little longer. The judge
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be very long either, so I've got a lot of stuff that we can watch afterwards.
will ask Brian Koberger some questions, and he'll explain the charges that were set out to set, the charges that he's facing. His attorneys will speak, the prosecution will speak, the judge may address some of the issues about legally that, explain to Brian Koberger that if you agree to this, which it sounds like you are agreeing to it, if you agree to it, this is bound. You are bound by it. There have been plea agreements before where they say yes, they say guilty, and then between that and sentencing, they take it back. Not saying that that would happen here, but there is a chance that might happen, or that once that's rare, that's very rare. But he could new evidence could come out or something. But it sounds like they are ready to wrap this up. And I read earlier. Let me go back. Some of the victims' families are happy about this. Some have not issued statements about it. And then the one family of Kaylee is not happy. She said, let me
Would you guys be happy? I would be very unhappy.
The prosecutors wrote,
because my question is why have the death penalty at all? What is the point? If just get rid of it. I feel like it's a bargaining chip at this point. Don't use it. Get rid of it. It's supposed to be for the worst of the worst. And if this isn't the worst of the worst, what is?
a letter to the families.
These
This resolution
kids
is
were
our
going to
sincere attempt
school
to seek
trying to be better people in society, and this man decided it was a good thing to go in, and we have proof now that one of the girls actually ran from him and he chased her down the stairs.
justice for your
And
family.
we probably won't figure out what's going on. And the same thing happened in the Watts case. The same thing. We didn't get the answers because the prosecutors wanted to act like it was a good thing that they weren't doing the death penalty. But what is the death penalty for if not for these tragic, horrific cases? I don't know. I'm not for the death penalty either, but why have it?
A letter that the families got on Monday. This agreement ensures that the defendant will be convicted, will spend the rest of his life in prison, and will not be able to put you.
Sorry, guys, I'm feeling a little aggressive. There's a lot of stuff going on between the Gypsy Rose, the Brian Koberger, and the Diddy case. I'm like, what in the world? It's making me really sad about the world.
And the other families through the uncertainty of decades of post-conviction appeals. So many people have said, why are they rushing this? There's a plea agreement. Why don't they give him a week? Why don't they get the families time to think about it or weigh in on it? Ultimately, the victims should have a say, but legally, it's up to the state. It's the state of Idaho prosecuting them. And also, the state wants to be sure that if he's going to plead guilty, get it on the record now. The longer they wait before they get him to sign this, before he says it before the judge, the more chances he could change.
I would love if the judge.
And so that's why this comes together Monday. It's Wednesday morning. They scheduled this.
I won't accept this, but of course he's going to accept it. But that would be just like a dream. That would be a good dream.
Hearing they're going to get it done as quickly as they can. Jordan, you want to make sure that we're not missing anything. We have this up on multiple screens.
I've got it up on multiple too, and it
appears,
says court will resume shortly.
Happening in court, just refreshed here, so that's what I wanted to check on.
I want to go off to our other stuff.
Ada County Jail since
I want to go off to our other stuff, but I'm afraid we'll miss it because he said that they're pretty sure they're going to start on time. It's 11 o'clock in Idaho. It's 1 o'clock Eastern time in Florida. And yeah, what do you guys think? I don't think I have my Watts Island people with me because I didn't put like Chris Watts in the description, which is getting a little frustrating to me that I can't do a live and get people in unless it's Chris Watts. But anyway,
through the court camera system, so people all over the world could have watched that. And that is how they are providing the feed today. It's now 11:06 a.m. Idaho time, Mountain Daylight Time. We're watching, keeping an eye on that court camera system once it comes up. I'm going to grab a drink here, just one moment.
Oh, good idea. I need some water myself.
And once the court happens today, once the hearing happens today, it's possible the family members could come out in front of the courthouse and address the media, could make statements. There has been a gag order in place on this entire case for at least over a year now, 2 years, that the previous judge was his name. He put a gag order on this case. So prosecutors, defense attorneys, law enforcement, family members, people associated with this case were not supposed to talk about it at all. Kind of unusual to have such a sweeping gag order in place after this, but it is what it is, and people have been kept quiet, along with the family members who have been kept quiet. I do want to let you know that we've had a couple of statements that have just come in, including one from the death penalty action. They say, quote, "A plea deal to avoid the death penalty is a fairly common resolution, but the threat of execution is not necessary to achieve a guilty plea when the evidence is clear and convincing. Mr. Koberger will be held accountable, society held safe from him, and the families of his victims can begin their healing process immediately, rather than having to wait decades for
I think the big problem is that a lot of people are looking at the Menendez brothers and saying, well, they were supposed to be in prison for life, and now look at that. They're not. So what? We don't believe you, Koberger. And I say the same thing with Watts. There may be a day where Chris Watts is out. Yes, there may be a weird day. The world is drastically different than it was from the 80s and 90s, my friends. It's drastically different. So think about what it could be drastically different 20, 30 years from now. So I don't know. I get it.
an execution that may never come. The other beneficiary here is the Idaho taxpayers, who now will not have to pay for years of litigation. I also want to let you know that the Associated Press attorneys, on behalf of the media, are asking for an immediate unsealing of the court documents in the Koberger case, as well as a lifting of the gag order, which hopefully that will be
That would
granted.
be nice, the
I
lifting
want
of the
to
gag order,
take
so we
you
could at least know what
inside the
happened.
courtroom to some people who are tweeting and read you what's happening in there. I'm going to play you this. And Steve Gonsalves, I'll just play you this clip audio-wise.
Yeah, what do you want? We know when you flew out here. We know. We have your flight records.
How are you preparing to see him today?
Not to see.
When you say you know the flight records, what do you mean, Steve?
I know when his parents booked their flight. When his father did.
What does that mean?
You'll find out.
Would you like to say something to them?
The rest of your family went inside. Is it important for them to be in there today? Where are you going? Are you not able to get in? You're not staying in? Steve,
Wow. Sounds like Kaylee's dad is not going in the courtroom. He does not want to see Koberger. Thanks to Anjanette Levy from Law and Crime. She tweeted that. I'm going to play that again. He says something about, actually here,
that actually surprises me that Kaylee's dad won't be there.
I'll pull it up on this computer because I don't want to lose the signal from the court.
do you have any message for Koberger's family?
Yeah, what do you want?
We know when you flew out here. We know. We have your flight records.
How are you preparing to see him today?
It's okay.
I'm not gonna see.
When you say you know the flight records, what do you mean, Steve?
I know when his parents booked their flight. When his father did.
What does that mean?
You'll find out.
Would you like to say something to them?
I don't care about them, he said.
The rest of your family went inside. Is it important for them to be in there today?
Yeah, for sure.
Where are you
Yes,
going?
for sure.
Are you not able to get in?
I can't understand it.
No, I'm not going in there.
Steve,
So Steve Gonsalves is outside the courtroom, and
so Kaylee's dad's
it
out.
looks like 50 seconds ago, the media was being let into the courtroom.
I
The
think they're
victims'
going to start
family
in a
members are
second.
already seated inside. Koberger is not yet inside. Chanley Painter from Fox tweeted that.
I can't believe we've gone all
And
this time for this. Ugh.
she's headed inside the courtroom. He is outside. And they are being seated. We'll see if everybody gets into the courtroom that was looking for a seat.
I wish they would start.
Everybody waiting in the hallway were lined up against the wall as the victim family members walked by to enter the courtroom. Brian Enton tweeting, "Everyone is silent. I'm so sad for them."
Oh.
Steve Gonzalez outside the courtroom said, quote, "The prosecutors made a deal with the devil."
Remember when the Watts
Steve
case
walked the
was
family to the front of
happening,
the
and
courthouse.
I
They
just
all went inside. Steve is
remember
now
how
leaving. He said yesterday
red
he couldn't be in there. Thank you to Brian Enton for these tweets.
how
Ethan
red
Chapin's
Frank's face
family just
was.
arrived. They went inside. Of course, all of this is happening on a crazy morning for news. If switching gears a little bit, and I won't
Completely
talk too
crazy. The
long
Diddy
about
thing is
Diddy, but
crazy.
the verdict came down in that case. He was
Ugh.
found guilty, not on the more serious
It
charges, but
doesn't surprise me. I knew they were going to find him guilty on something, but not to put him away for life because he knows too much.
on the lesser charge. So it is a big day happening for court. And it looks like I'm being told they will be starting the live stream in just a few minutes. Once that starts, we of course will jump into that. There are people gathered outside the courthouse who did not get a seat. And I'm just trying to pull up to see who we can bring you right now. They will be watching along with the rest of the world on the cameras outside, on the live feed outside. Here is the rest of what Steve Gonzalez said.
I mean, it was good enough for mine.
Do you have any message for Koberger's family?
Yeah, what do you want
We
Koberger
know,
to
we
know?
know when you flew out here. We know.
I played that one. Let me play you the first part.
I mean, it was good enough for mine.
Do you have any message for Koberger's family?
Yeah, what do you want
We
Koberger
know,
to
we
know?
know when you flew out here.
Okay, I already played that one. My apologies.
How are you preparing to see him today?
That's it.
When you say you know the flight records, what do you mean, Steve?
I know when his parents booked their flight. When his father did.
What does that mean?
The flight record? What does that mean?
Would you like to say something to them?
What does it mean?
Okay, so he doesn't care about them. Ethan Chapin's family arrived.
Oh,
Here we go.
okay, here they go.
All right, this is CR 0124316665. Defendant is present in custody with counsel, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Jennings, and pardon me, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Massoff, and Ms. Barlow. The state's present with Mr. Thompson, Mr. Horowitz, Ms. Jennings, and Mr. Nye is here as well. Am I miss anybody? I'm sorry.
Ms. Allen is here as well.
Ms.
Your
Allen
Honor.
is here as well. Very well, thank you. All right, we are here today to entertain a change of plea. Before I start, I want to address some issues of concern and otherwise. First, I appreciate everybody in attendance today being on their best behavior. Please, no outbursts or demonstrations. Any such conduct will result in immediate removal and may result in an an inability to attend further court proceedings in this case. I want to point out that there have been calls by some for the public to contact me and my office in an attempt to influence my decision-making in this case. This has been extraordinarily disruptive for court staff and the ability for them to get work done, not only in this case, but in other cases where defendants are entitled to have their cases processed, and frankly, as important, if not more so, for victims to have their cases processed in those cases. It's also highly inappropriate. The court is not supposed to, and this court will never take into account public sentiment in making an opinion regarding its judicial decisions in cases. Courts should, and I always will, make decisions based on where the facts and the law lead me, period. I have not read any of the numerous messages nor listened to any of the numerous voicemails that have been sent to me and my staff. Those have all been forwarded to security and, where appropriate, to law enforcement. I ask that you not continue to mount such campaigns or to send me information like this, because again, it is not appropriate and frankly not something I would take into account when deciding a matter in a case like this. I also want people to understand some very basic concepts about the ideas of separation of powers, what the court's duties are, and what the duties and the rights of the executive, or in this case, the prosecuting attorney, is. The executive, the elected prosecutor, is the sole authority in deciding what charges to pursue, including whether, as well as what penalties to ask for, and what penalties to pursue, including the death penalty. This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited. My role is to ensure that the defendant's plea is given freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. If those things are met, I can only reject a plea, such as the one in this case, where I'm not being asked to agree to the sentence in advance. If I can only reject it, for example, if the defendant does not meet or admit to all of the elements of the crime. That is, I can ensure what is called a factual basis to the plea. Finally, I want to offer my apologies to all the families, including the victims' families, the families of the defendant, for the short notice for today's hearing, and I'm sure what must have been the hurried efforts to get here. I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had no inkling of it beforehand. Prior to that time, I was under the belief that this case was proceeding to trial, as had been indicated, and my staff and I were busy continuing to work on preparations to have potentially 10,000 citizens of Ada County come to jury duty starting in mid-July with the questionnaire process in mid-July. It was, once I learned of the defendant's decision to change his plea in this case, it was important that I take the plea as soon as possible because of the extraordinary administrative efforts that were otherwise attendant to the process of this getting this trial potentially underway on time, and including the significant process of bringing again, potentially up to 10,000 jurors to come in and fill out juror questionnaires prior to the beginning of the voir dire process. And so it was important that we, if we're going to go down this road, do so expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time specified. And so that obviously required that we act quickly. And so some folks may have not had the amount of time that we would otherwise allow for them to travel here. And so again, I apologize for that. I want to make people aware that during the hearing, if you are to leave the courtroom for any reason, you will not be readmitted during the hearing. Also, when we finish the hearing this morning, I ask that the public and media wait in their seats until the victims' families and the defendants' families and others are escorted out of the courtroom before you start to leave. Finally, I want to acknowledge the trial court administrator and her staff, the Ada County Sheriff, and the Ada County 4th District Marshal Service for the huge lift that they've accomplished in preparing for and orchestrating this hearing today, as well as to all the security attendant today that you see, and some of whom many of whom you don't see, with less than 48 hours notice. And so I appreciate the hard work that they've been doing. Frankly, some of them while they were on some vacation prior to the trial starting and had to call that short. And so I appreciate very much their professionalism and dedication. All right. That said, let's move to the business of today. I understand the state and the defense have reached a plea agreement in this case. For the record, I have a written plea agreement which indicates in sum, the defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment: burglary, felony, and first-degree murder, 4 counts. The state and the defendant stipulate, that is, that the defense is not free to argue for a lesser sentence at sentencing to the following. The defendant on the burglary charge will be sentenced to 10 years fixed, and that the defendant on counts 2 through 5, the 4 counts of first-degree homicide, on each count would receive a fixed life sentence, all 5 of those counts to run consecutive to one another. Defendant, as part of the plea agreement, waives his right to appeal, as well as his right to appeal the sentence and his right to seek leniency or reconsideration of the sentence under Idaho Criminal Rule 35. This is not a Rule 11 agreement, meaning the court is not bound by the plea agreement and could impose a different lawful sentence at sentencing. The stipulated agreement between the parties is the maximum on each count. So theoretically, the only thing the court could do would be a lesser sentence at sentencing. But the defendant is not free to ask the court to do so under the plea agreement. Are there any other material terms of the plea agreement that the parties would like to make? Obviously, the plea agreement, the written plea agreement will speak for itself, will be part of the court record.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, very well. All right. Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter offers and answered his questions about those?
Yes,
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
Right, Mr. Koberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in the matter not being before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, and Mr. Koberg, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right? Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions? Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime, to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment, to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
As as I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Has anyone other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel, obviously there have been a number of motions filed to suppress evidence in this case. other than those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Koberg, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory questionnaire that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case. Should you not plead guilty, did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find the document. Hang on a second here. All right. So as to count one burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence, Loca County, Idaho, you 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count two, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogan, from which she died. As to count three, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count four, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count five, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
I want to also make, for the record, the defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that purports to have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yes.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
And then let me ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing in his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Koberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Koberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop of Mr. Koberger's car. which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Koberger's name, Brian Koberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Koberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include at trial video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway just across the state line from Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Caitlin Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel, still awake at this time, in fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor, it was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walinta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, the defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Koberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 2, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Koberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Koberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Koberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Mogan's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Koberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene. I can tell the court and the public, the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings. In Pennsylvania, the defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, in those compartments in the doors. You can try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me, Mr. Koberger entered the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought, Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, based on the state's proffer, and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Koberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. The court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea, and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. I'll continue the matter for sentencing in this case. I think it was mentioned on the call Monday afternoon, the defense wishes to waive a pretrial investigation. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state also?
Yes, Your Honor. The state does not believe pre-sentence investigation is needed, given the evidence that is available. We want to, though, make sure that all of the victims have the opportunity to make statements to the court at sentencing.
Absolutely. And certainly both the state and the defense may present whatever sentencing memorandum and other documents you wish me to consider. The victims will be given an opportunity to provide the statements that they wish to at sentencing. Do we need more than one full day for sentencing?
I do not believe so, Your Honor. We have numerous victims, and we have victims who share unique perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that they all have time to express their feelings to the court. But I believe that if we can start perhaps 8:30 or so in the morning, that we should be able to complete it all in one day.
Defense agree with that in terms of the time frame?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So as it happens, we have some time reserved in this case in July and August. The week of July 22nd is available. I don't know if that's too soon for the parties or the next week, the week of August 4 is available. Any preference?
Your Honor, we're prepared as soon as the court wants to schedule it.
The state, I believe, would be prepared on the 22nd. We've told the victims' families that we're looking at approximately those dates.
All right. So because of the plan to bring in so many jurors to fill out questionnaires, I had ordered that no other trials could take place in this courthouse the week of July 22nd. And so we will use that in terms of the sentencing date because of what I'm sure will be the significant interest of the media and the public and the logistics that will be required to make that happen. Without trials going, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So let's pick that week. Why don't we pick July 23rd with the idea that if for some reason we don't finish, we could continue into the 24th. We'll start at 9 in the morning. Does that give your team enough time, Sandra? 9 in the morning? All right. Any concerns with that date?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, sir.
All right. Any reason why I should not rescind the non-dissemination order at this time?
You're right. I think that given the history of this case, it would be best if that remained in place through sentencing. So we have time to make sure there's the ability to completely answer questions. That would be the state's preference and recommendation.
We'd have no objection for the order to remain in place through
All right,
sentencing.
I will, at this point, the idea to keep it until sentencing, which time it would be withdrawn in order to give the parties the space and time to prepare to meet what I'm sure will be the deluge of media requests. That's at least my preliminary decision at this point. We can always revisit if it seems to be, for some reason, I should. That said, obviously, I don't think the defendant, a bond was ever set for the defendant. Were it would be revoked. The prior order allowing him to come in civilian clothes is revoked, given his plea and no longer the presumption of innocence. And in fact, now the actual conviction for the crimes. He will continue to be held at the jail pending sentencing. Is there anything else today?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
I assume that the trial date will be vacated and those 4 jurors will be released.
The trial will be vacated, and I'm sure that the jury commissioner will get word to those that receive their summons that they won't be required to attend. So that said, again, if you would all please wait for the parties and the victims' families and others to leave the courtroom before you do, I would appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned. All right, please.
Brian Kohberger pleading guilty on all counts. He will be sentenced July 23rd in Ada County, and he will spend the rest of his life in prison. He will not be able to appeal. That comes after a 1 hour, almost an hour hearing where the prosecutor laid out the timeline. In March of 2022, Kohberger purchased a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card. In June of 2022, he moved from Pullman, Washington
So if
he moved
you're
to Pullman,
if
Washington.
you're just watching, welcome. We are watching Nate Eaton. Brian Koberger just pled guilty. They did schedule the hearing for, I think, the 24th. The prosecutor laid it all out. I've been talking to Rose on the phone. She's actually going to get a new phone so that we can talk about this. But we're going to reschedule it for Friday. I'm going to keep watching this, but I'm going to keep what I have planned, the comparison of the Watts and the Koberger case. I'm going to reschedule that for Friday, but we are going to keep watching this.
Washington from Pennsylvania to obtain a PhD in criminal justice. On July 9th of 2022, his phone hit a cell tower near the home on King Road. These murders happened in November. 4 months earlier, his phone hit a cell tower near the residence. And between July 9th and November 7th, his phone connected late at night to that cell phone tower between 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. at least 23 times. The prosecutor, Bill Thomas, was clear that that phone never actually, they don't know for sure if there was direct evidence tying it to the actual house, but it was in the area of the house. I'm just monitoring outside the courthouse here. In just a moment, I'll let you know if any of the families come out and address the media, and if so, we will cut to that. On August 22nd, Koberger was stopped on a traffic stop around 11 p.m. He had on Pennsylvania plates on his vehicle. Police were able to get his name, phone number, and address, along with information about his car. November 13th of 2022, his phone left his Pullman residence. It then was turned off until 4:48 a.m. The vehicle that he was in was spotted in the area around 3:30 a.m. It went to the home, the King Road home, according to surveillance phone footage, very fast. In fact, the police said that it left at a high rate of speed and almost lost control. The surveillance footage showed. Bill Thomas, the prosecutor, said the defendant went into the house through a kitchen sliding door, went to the third floor where he killed Madison and Kaylee with a knife. As he left, he did not take the sheath with him, the knife sheath, left it on the bed with a single source of DNA. On his way out, Xana Kernodle was awaiting a DoorDash order. He came down the stairs. He killed her. He then went and killed Ethan, who was asleep. Multiple wounds on all of the victims. There was no sexual component to any of them. There were two other roommates in the home. One woke up, saw Koberger leave out of the kitchen door. At 4:20 a.m., Koberger can be seen on camera leaving the King Road home at a high rate of speed. He went out of the area through back roads, did not take highways, as cameras on the highways would have picked him up. There was no spottage of him in the vehicle leaving, so he went through on back roads. But then at 4:48 a.m., his phone turned on south of Moscow on Highway 95. 5:26, the camera was spotted, and a cell phone spotted the next day. The phone returned near the house. He took a selfie on the phone in the bathroom with a thumbs up. He looked like a ghost. November 13th, he searched on his computer for K-bar knife sheath, and attempted to delete or alter the history of his Amazon account. The plates on his car were then changed, and it's notable because in Pennsylvania, you don't have to have a front plate. In Washington, you do. He got Washington plates. And in the footage of the vehicle at the home, there was no front plate. DNA was found on a Q-tip belonging to his father at the Washington house in the garbage. It matched DNA when collected from Brian Koberger when he was brought here to Idaho. The DNA on the Q-tip matched the DNA from the knife sheath. A weapon was never found. His apartment was searched. His office was searched. There was nothing of evidentiary value found there. His vehicle, the prosecutor said, looked like it had been disassembled internally. It was spotless. In fact, there was a bucket of cleaner right there, meticulously cleaned, even in the door cracks, where you store a tissue or wrappers or something. Nothing was there. And the prosecutor said they believed that this was part of Kohberger's plan to clean up the mess, to clean up the crime scene. He had wrote a detailed paper about crime scene processing and knew what to do. The prosecutor said Kohberger may not have intended to commit all of the murders, but that's what he did. Kohberger then stood, and as the judge read each of the charges, he said, guilty, 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 guilty. He accepted the plea agreement. There will be no pre-sentence investigation. The defense waived it. The prosecutor was fine with that. And sentencing will happen fairly quickly. The time had been set aside for a trial this month, and they were going to go through jury questionnaires and things like that to pick a jury, but that will not be happening because Kohberger will appear to be sentenced. There will be a sentencing hearing that will be one day. It could spill into the 24th. It's interesting because the sentencing will happen the same day that Lori Vallow Daybell is being sentenced.
Oh,
Let me take you outside the courthouse.
That is interesting.
We may not have a shot here, and if we don't, I'll cut away and come back. Tonight, we're going to have a full courtroom insider. Join me tonight, 7:00 Mountain Time. We will have Howard Bloom here. He has written a book about this case. He is very well educated on the case. He knows the ins and outs of this. He has sources, deep sources, and he will be here tonight.
I'm just looking while he's talking to see if there's a cutaway, and I don't see any cutaways. Oops, that's my meditation. Okay, guys, I'm going to go. I was talking to Rosie, and we're going to pick this back up on Friday and do the comparison of Chris Watts's plea deal to Kohberger's plea deal. I'm just not feeling good. I thought I was feeling okay. Rose is having audio issues, and I'm just not up to doing a live by myself, just talking to the ethers by myself. So I'm going to reschedule it for Friday. That was the Kohberger. He did plead guilty. The judge accepted it. And so, yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to go. If nobody's told you this today, and even if they have, I'm still going to tell you this. I love you guys so, so much, and I'll see you next time. Congratulations to the new Dragonflies. Bye, guys.
I miss my cue, baby, I had you. Miss my cue, but I had you for that day. Here in the blue, I'm falling deep.
Be sure to give this live a thumbs up. Helps me go out into the algorithm party out there. Bring more people back to the party. It's just a free way to help me.
Baby, I'm dancing with you tonight, and it feels fine, feels fine. Baby, I'm dancing with you tonight. Falling out, hoping for some time with you.